This thing's finally built, but there were a few details yesterday that had to be figured out. Specifically, how to make the enclosure that would sort of run by and embrace the electromagnet, put the weld plate in contact with the magnet itself, leave a hole in here for the manual lock, and miss the gate post as it came by. I think I have that figured out. And last night about 4 o'clock a.m. I decided to weld it off and let the chips fall where they may. Let me show you what this thing looks like, then I'll flop this back down on the rack and glue it together. And you may remember this pin, this deadbolt, is made so you can put a lock on the top and the bottom. That's so the fire department can have one lock and Kelly and I can have the other. It's obviated when the closer is working, but the closer is not going to be working for a while. You probably watched me make this box. This is the electric magnet, and it has to go right in there. So this is the deceptively simple enclosure. Lid over the top, holds the plate that engages with the magnet, floor with the holes that receive the deadbolt. Doesn't look like much, does it? Took all my bandwidth yesterday, and I'm just hoping against hope that it's right. But it's tacked. It appears to be right, and so I'm going to burn the bolts and nail it down. Let me show you one other adaptation that we had to put in place just the other day. Do you remember a couple videos back when I realized that my frame was high enough that I couldn't hook the crane and lift it high enough to turn it over because it bottomed out up against the winch? Do you remember the fix that I put in place that worked fine for a while? Desperate times, desperate measures, I guess. Well, I put a better one on here this morning. Instead of just putting a bolt through the chain, I've rigged up essentially a knot with 2 shackles, clevises probably. They're not safety shackles, but they're way safer than what was there, so that I can lift this thing high enough to turn it over just once or twice more. Let me show you the moment of truth I had the other day when that bolt connection turned out to just not be quite adequate. So I stuck a 1/4-inch bolt through the chain because it's the only size bolt that would go through the opening. And it worked great until I picked it up after twisting it and apparently held it a little too long. See that? But I was lulled into complacency by the temporary success, and I am thankful that it didn't hurt anybody, it didn't hurt my forge, and it didn't even hurt the gate. But it did knock a chunk of concrete off the edge of my slab. Win, lose, or draw, I am going to weld this thing off. Right over the top of the tacks. Then raise it up to burn in these welds back here. Don't want to weld overhead. I think I'll even weld the interior. All right, so I'm going to show you guys some of these, and then you're going to tell me and the world how these welds should be interpreted. You may have heard me switching back and forth between a really long arc, hot, and a little shorter. I'm never really sure which should be used all the time. So this right here was a little colder, and it's stacked up pretty good. I like it, you know, flushed out with the top of this 5/16 plate and stacked on there. And then this vertical down, of course, anybody can run those. That's pretty good. And then I double passed this around here, and it's okay, I guess, for a cover bead. But then I turned the heat up, and I wasn't paying close enough attention, and a lot of the puddle was running down and hanging over here, and I'm gonna have to grind that off. And that's not exactly undercut, but it sure wasn't stacking the puddle up there. And then turned it down a little and got better, and I think that's pretty good. And that's probably all right. This is erratic coming around the corner. Some guys can just keep that so smooth. And this is not as good as the other end. That's not exactly undercut, but I didn't get it filled all the way up. I may try that again. And the vertical down is good. So anyway, this is the spot that I'm going to look at every time I come out to put the deadbolt in the gate before the closer's on. And sure enough, it's the spot that a little disappointing. But we're not done yet, so maybe we can get better. Under the broad general category of excuses, I think I've just realized again that when I have trouble welding, I should clean off the lens cover. Just did that. Let's see if we do any better. All right, you welders, beat me about the head and shoulders. And see if you can contribute anything here to help other people troubleshoot their welds. I don't know what the exact dynamic is, whether it's condensation that accumulates and then the water freezes and it bulges and breaks square tubing. But too many times I've seen pieces of square tubing swelled up when water in there that got there somehow freezes and expands and does some damage. Will that happen here? I don't know. But I'm going to drill a few weep holes just in case. I learned to weld in high school ag class, about 1974 or so, from Mr. Fine. And knowing how to weld has been a huge benefit to me personally and professionally pretty much all my life, and I strongly encourage everybody to learn a little bit about welding if you can. Because one of the aspects of welding, at least for me, has been the fact that it has enabled me and really almost obligated or trapped me into taking on a few projects that were just way beyond me at the time. They were just too hard. I had no business trying it, but I made it. And those are the kinds of projects that change us the most. They give us the memories and the satisfaction and the education. They make life worthwhile. And almost every time, win, lose, or draw, when you look back, you're going to realize you learned a lot more living out of the comfort zone than living in it. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.